Welcome to the Unbecoming podcast, where you can join me, Stephanie Baranowski, in an authentic, personal perspective of my expat journey and my many travel adventures. Grab a beverage of your choice, set yourself up in a cozy environment, and be prepared to be inspired. Each episode, I open up my personal narrative of what it's like to unbecome everything you once were in order to become everything you were meant to be. Let's dive in, head first, eyes closed, and a strong cup of faith. June 9th, 2022, the day I started my job in London as a teacher. I had already known about this job since way before I landed in London, and it was one of the reasons why I even came to London was the opportunity to get work experience in the schools here. I had no idea what I was walking into. I had been trained as a Canadian teacher, which is very, very different curriculum and very different standards in the school system. And when I started my job on June 9th, it was a culture shock, even going to the school. So schools that I grew up with in Canada, they have nice open fields. The schools are really open to the community. And only really the playground is kind of gated, just to make sure kids aren't leaving the playground area, but it's not gated where it's locked up or anything, or, the community outside can't see. It's like chain link fence. So it's still very, very inviting for the community. Well, when I walked up to this school that I started teaching in that day, it was very gated. And the only way in was to press a button for the intercom that went straight to the office to let me in. So I kindly said over the intercom, "Hi, I'm here to do some supply work here as a substitute teacher. So I need to be let in." So they let me in. I signed myself in at the front desk. I had to provide my copy of my photo ID and what's called a DBS form here, which is basically like a criminal record check done here. But you need to have that done anywhere. It's pretty standard protocol, especially working with children. So I get all that set up, and the head teacher, which is equivalent to the principal in Canada, comes out to greet me. And she greets me so nice and warmly. She's very pleasant. Takes me to my classroom, does a 2-minute rundown, and is like, "Okay, here you go. Here's some papers here for you. There is a teacher right next door. She's teaching the same grade as you or the same year as you. So if you have any questions, go ahead and ask her." I was thrown to the wolves. I had no idea what the standards were in the UK schools. I had no idea where anything was. And then I waited for the teacher next door to come in so that I could get a good feel as to what is the standard protocol for the schools here in the UK and what are the standard protocols for that specific school. And this lovely, lovely lady walks in. She's around my age, maybe a little bit younger, from Australia. So kind. And she very much empathized with my situation because she had just started at the school a month prior. So she knew my situation very well. She said, "Don't worry, I was in the same position as you a month ago. Here is what I have outlined for the kids for the day. You're welcome to follow my plan. I'll make some extra copies for you. So don't worry, we'll get it all figured out." Oh, what a relief. Okay, somebody telling me what I'm supposed to be doing. Now, in Canada schools, kids know when school starts, when A, the morning bell rings and kids need to be in their classrooms, but B, we start off by singing our national anthem, "O Canada." And that's how children know, okay, we're in school, we need to be respectful, we need to put our learning hats on, or whatever you want to call it, and we're ready to learn, and we're ready to let the teacher guide us. And most kids in Canadian schools will come in and they know those standards. Those standards are set from the very beginning, and it's all across Canada. It's not new for any school. It's the same across Canada. Always start school off with the national anthem. However, it's not the same in the UK school system. No national anthem is sung, and there is no very specific way that children know when school starts. So right from the very beginning, there's chaos. School starts when the teacher starts school, essentially. And so it's chaos from the moment that kids come in to set the standards and the expectations. So that was the very first thing that I learned when I walked into a UK school was, well, there's no set standards for kids to know when does school actually start. Does it start when I walk into the classroom? Does it start when the teacher starts speaking? Does it start, when does school start? There is no specific start time. So that was one of the first things that I noticed that I was really unsure about the UK school system. Another thing that I noticed is that the UK school system very much does subject-divided teaching. So they have math, they have science, they have English, and it's all divided subjects. Whereas when I went to school, we teach very much cross-curriculum. We try and cross as much different subject matters and learning outcomes from each subject matter in one lesson plan as we can. Obviously not going overboard because we still have to assess the learning outcomes, but we try and do it in a way that kids are having fun with it, they're engaging with it, and they're learning without even realizing they're learning, and the material is sticking. But here in the UK, it's very subject divided, which has its place in time for sure. And so that was something that I needed to get used to in the school system here was that it was very subject divided. And the things that they were doing in the schools, and this was pretty consistent across many of the schools that I've gone into ever since that day. And I'm now 7.5 months into living in London and being in and out of various schools. And it's very much consistent the way that they get the learning outcomes out. And it's more so about getting the learning outcomes and kind of covering their own butts in a way to make sure that the learning outcomes are being taught. But what's really concerning is the assessment piece is missing. And that was something very, very big that in Canadian schools, we were very much grilled and taught. How are you planning on assessing this? How do you know a child has met the learning outcome? How do you know a child is struggling with the learning outcome? And if they are struggling, what are some ways that you can teach them so that they do grasp the concept of the learning outcome that you're trying to teach that's in your lesson plan? That was something that was very much grilled into me as a teacher, as a student teacher. And now I'm seeing the reason why behind it. There's lots of other things within the school system here, such as the demographics of a lot of the schools is I'm in what's called the private schools, which in Canadian dialogue, that would be public school system, basically state schools. And in the state schools, you see a lot of poverty and you see a lot of children coming from many different backgrounds and many different cultural backgrounds. And you see quite a variance in the kids' ability to learn and meet those learning outcomes. You have some really brilliant students, and then you have some students that really fall behind. And I noticed this when I went into a year 9 classroom, which would be the equivalent of grade 9 in Canada. And these students, this was really concerning. These students had said to me, Miss B, they didn't teach us this. They don't teach us anything in school, which was so concerning. I was just teaching them just simply how to divide their page into 6 and to divide their color wheel in a way that they can fit all the colors on the color wheel in an art class. And one of the students said to me, "Miss B, we never learned this." And I'm thinking to myself, wait a second, you never learned this? This is stuff you would learn in primary years. And this is stuff that I taught last year to my kindergarten kids back in Canada. I'm not really understanding what's going on here with the school system. Well, I've come to realize working here in the school system and understanding the school system here, there is a very, very, very big divide of the rich and the poor demographics. Now, I'm pretty lucky that I get to see both sides of this. I also work in one of the bougiest shopping places in the world, right on Oxford Street. It's called Selfridges, if you never heard of it. I never heard of it until I actually got hired. I had no idea what I was walking into. All I knew is I was going to be working for Lululemon, which is a Canadian brand company that I was very, very familiar with. And I was like, oh, yes, a piece of home. I'm going to go work there. And so they placed me at this location in Selfridges. Now, I didn't find out what exactly Selfridges was until I got to the building. My manager had advised me, okay, you need to get into the entrance on this street here. You can't get off the main street. That's where the staff entrance is. When you go inside, you're going to go to the security desk. You're going to get yourself a temporary card until we get you your full card. This is what you do. You go down this escalator, then you go through, and then I'll meet you at the next floor. Okay, that seemed pretty simple. Pretty simple directions. Okay, maybe I needed to go into this specialty building in order to get to, the Lululemon. Well, I was a little shocked when I walked into the building and realized, oh, these security measures are here in place for a reason. So I go get my card at the security desk. Very, very friendly. I follow the directions as posed by my manager. I get through the second round of security, and I get to the shop floor, and I start walking around, and I'm seeing Gucci, Louis Vuitton, Saint Laurent, Chanel. Okay, it is starting to hit me. I'm in a really bougie, boutique-y place. Very cool. I'm very impressed with myself at the moment that I landed this job, and I had no idea what it was. This isn't the first time this has happened to me. It also happened to me when I moved to Vancouver, and I applied to work in a spa in a hotel. Well, I had no idea the caliber of spa that I was applying for until I actually went for the interview of it. And I walked into the building, and I saw this super bougie, beautiful building on the inside. And I meet with my manager, and she tells me about the spa, gives me a tour of it. And next thing you know, she's, giving me the job on the spa. Well, you have these years of experience in the aesthetics field and everything. And, how would you like to have a full-time position as an esthetician here? Okay. Now keep in mind, this is a 5-star spa in Canada. The only Forbes 5-star spa in Canada that I ended up working at and landing. But I had no idea the caliber of job I was getting myself into until I landed it, until I walked into that interview. Well, this was the same thing. This is the same scenario. So I had no idea what Selfridges was. I probably should have looked it up, but I figured, I know the brand Lululemon. I know what I'm walking into with working for Lululemon, so it'll be fine. So I make my way all the way up to the 3rd floor, that's where the Lululemon location is. And I see my manager, like super friendly, bright-eyed, nice smile, very welcoming. And she takes me for a little bit of a tour, takes me to the loft area. And I just remember sitting there in the loft just before my meeting was going to start on the computer, thinking to myself, my life is about to change. I don't know why, I don't know how, but in this moment, I know my life is about to change by me just being here and working here. It was that very first day, and I'll never forget it. And it has changed in a lot of ways. I'm still waiting for that big magical mystery change that may or may not happen. But what has changed is my viewpoint and understanding about the economics of London and the UK, and on a much bigger scale, the economics of the world. So here I am working in the school system, working with kids in poverty, kids that are getting minimal education, minimal creativity, and really it's almost like being locked in a jail in a way. And then here I am on the opposite side, I'm seeing Selfridges, bougie boutique place. The clientele that come in are celebrities, high wealthy people, highly financially wealthy people from, Middle Eastern companies or countries that are in the oil fields or wherever they're from, or, even highly rich people from London themselves. And they're coming in and shopping and dropping money just like it's nothing. Yeah, I'll pay for that 1,000-pound bill. Not a big deal. Like nothing. And the big takeaway from this experience is this is a great representation of exactly what the UK is. There is a huge, huge divide between the rich and the poor. This was very, very shocking to me because Canada has a very big middle class and a smaller, richer, and smaller, poorer class. We do have them, but we have a much, much larger middle class. And so it's not uncommon to see, people living really, really great lives, middle of the bar lives. You have a nice car, you have a nice house, you send your kids to a good school, in a good neighborhood. It's very community driven. And that's most people's lives growing up in Canada. However, in the UK, it's quite different. And you're either very, very rich or very poor. And the middle ground is like a sliver. Very, very few people fit into that middle category. So I'm living, eating, breathing this divide in my work life. And it got me thinking on a much, much bigger scale about change, the concept of change. And I always, within myself, one of my biggest goals in life was to create change in the world. And I've been forever searching and forever developing on the skills and going to school in order for me to fulfill that purpose of creating change in the world. And it first started off with me wanting to be a yoga teacher and thinking, okay, maybe change to me is inspiring people through yoga on their own personal journey, whatever that looks like to them, developing mindfulness in the world. And then it went on to teaching kids yoga in the schools. And I thought, well, the best way to create change in the world is to get on to the next level. And children are the greatest place to start when it comes to creating change in the world because they're going to be the next leaders. Their minds are so open, and whatever we teach them is what they're going to grow into. So why not teach them mindfulness and yoga and taking care of themselves to uplift and build this world of mindfulness and health and wellness and having a healthier world? And then it went to the next level and I became a school teacher, and I thought, well, not only do I want to create healthy minds and wellness to expand and create change in the world, but I really wanted to create a more creative world, academically stimulating world. And in order for the world to go through change, to create change, is through creativity. We can have all the scientists in the world, but unless those scientists can dive into their creative center and really come up with those innovative ideas to create change, we'll never get there. And so I saw being a school teacher and using my love for the arts and creativity would be an amazing way of teaching kids how to tap into their own creativity and expand on that through academics so that they grew up to create these amazing, innovative ideas of change. Well, now I'm on the next level. I need to go beyond that. And in order for me to create change and to keep educating these children and bringing creativity into the world, I need to better understand the world. Well, what better way to do that than to experience working in another country, traveling to all these different countries and cities and seeing the cultural diversity, the economics, the demographics of each country, but also living, eating, breathing it as well, not just studying it from an outside perspective of through textbooks, but really studying it from the inside out. That's exactly what I'm doing here. I'm understanding and studying the economics of the UK from the inside out. And it's eye-opening and it's stimulating for my brain. How can I create change in this? Do I need to influence? Do I need to create a big movement? And then I brought myself back to my yoga roots. And I thought about some of the intentions that I set for my students sometimes in my class. One of the intentions that I set for my students is, well, change starts with you. Change starts with you tuning into yourself and cultivating that mindfulness of your mind and your body, the thoughts you think, how your body feels. Is there tension anywhere? How are you breathing? Are you breathing in your diaphragm and your belly? Or are you breathing in your chest? Noticing these little nuances and creating change from there. Well, if I'm breathing in my chest, how can I bring my breath down to my belly? If I'm thinking negative thoughts, what do I need to do to create change in order for me to make those more positive thoughts that are going to align with where I want to go and that give me something? And my body, if I'm feeling pain in my body or I'm not quite happy with it, what can I do to create change? Well, I need to be mindful of these things in order to create change. One of the things I say to my students is, well, you coming here to your mat today and spending some time to bring peace to yourself, to take care of your body and your mind, even though on a very, very small scale, that's just only taking care of you, it's actually doing an amazing thing for the world. Because energy is contagious, and the energy that you cultivate within yourself is the energy that you're going to emulate outwards. So if you're cultivating peace within yourself, you're taking time to take care of your body and your mind and you're in that yoga class, well, you're cultivating the energy within yourself of peace. And that's what everybody around you is going to feel afterwards. When you go home to your children or your husband or your wife, your family is going to feel that energy and they're going to adopt that into themselves. Even if you were just to go to the grocery store afterwards and have that peace feeling within yourself, when you go to the grocery store and you interact with the person bagging your groceries, they're going to feel that. Energy is contagious. What you create within yourself, it's like a domino effect. It's going to reach out to others. So when you create change within yourself, you're creating change in the world, even on this little minute scale. And so change has to start with you. And it really got me thinking about my role in this world to create change. and how just my actions, my thought patterns, and the things that I do and the goals I set for myself, how can I create a better sense of change? And what does that look like? What does change look like? So my challenge to you is for the next week is ask yourself, what does change mean to you? If you were to see one thing in the world that you would love to see change, what would that be? And then bring it down to a smaller scale into you. What is it that you need to do your due diligence, to create change within yourself, to emulate outwards, to create that change in the world? Thank you for tuning in and taking the time to listen to this podcast. Thank you for tuning in each and every Friday, releasing a new episode each and every Friday. You can count on it. And feel free to send your feedback or a hi or a comment, anything. I love getting feedback. Share your thoughts and your opinions on the subject, and I'm totally open to it. Otherwise, enjoy the week ahead, and we'll have the next podcast soon. Take care.